Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. Today, officially, the Goodreads nominees have posted, so in this video, I'm going to be reacting and breaking down all of the Romantasy nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards. Alright guys, so this is going to be a two-part video. In the first half, I'm going to be reacting to the Romantasy nominees in the Goodreads Choice Awards. A few days ago, I actually posted my Goodreads predictions, and like I said in that video, I am always completely wrong when it comes to guessing what books are going to be chosen. Now, although the results just posted this morning, I've already been spoiled for at least 2 books, so I know 2 books going in, but the rest I have no idea. So you'll get my genuine reaction. And then in the second half of this video, I'm going to give a spoiler-free plot synopsis of every book that is nominated, and then my overall thoughts if I've read the book already. And we have a lot of books to get through, so let's get started. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these books. Alright guys, so I have Goodreads pulled up. Now I will say I did already look at the fantasy category, so I know that Alchemy of Secrets, which was one of my predictions, is in fantasy. So I was right about my guess, just wrong with the genre. Now, let's go and see what books were nominated. I'm nervous. Okay, right off the bat, 3 books that I 100% did not have on my predictions video. So one is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I realized I forgot this book when I was doing my editing. I was like, ooh, yeah, that book is probably being nominated. So completely missed that. Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. Now this is book 3 in a series. I did not think this book was getting nominated. I know the first book was really popular, but I just haven't seen a lot of people talking about the third one. So, yep, completely did not guess that. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, I should have predicted that. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, Carissa Broadbent, 100%. Onyx Storm, we knew that was getting nominated. So, that is not a surprise. Silver Elite. Okay, I feel like this one, a lot of people are going to be very, very angry that it ended up being nominated because there's a whole discourse over if this is romantasy or dystopian. I consider it dystopian romantasy, so I am very happy it made it and was nominated. Shield of Sparrows, 100% deserves it. This was Devney Perry's debut. I'll talk about the plot in the second half of this book, but I definitely agree that should be nominated. Rose in Chains, knew that was getting nominated. Immortal, okay, see that was a wild card that I added to my predictions. So I'm getting slightly better at guessing the nominees. Mate, which is the sequel to Bride. I did think this was going to be nominated, but I thought it was going to be nominated under the romance category. Because technically it's paranormal, so that's on me. I should have guessed that. Alchemized, knew that was getting nominated. Our Vicious Oath, that is awesome. I didn't think that was getting nominated only because it is such a recent release. And I met this author at Books, Gowns, and Crowns, and she didn't have any of the books for sale at the time. It hadn't come out yet. So I pre-ordered it from a bookstore, but I definitely want to read this very soon. This author is also going through a really upsetting time right now that I'll also talk about in the second half of this video. So definitely think about supporting her. If you haven't picked up this book and you've been wanting to read it, definitely go buy it. I'll have it linked down in the description below. But awesome, that is nominated. Enchantra, I should have predicted that. Phantasma, I'm pretty sure was nominated last year, so not very surprised Enchantra was nominated. Direbound, yes, very happy about that one. A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. That was not on my radar. I did not see that being nominated at all. So kind of surprised about that one. Nothing against that author. I just don't hear people talking about it very often. The Wrath of the Fallen, which is the 4th book in the Gods and Monsters series. Awesome. I also would not have guessed that. On Wings of Blood. Now, this I'm pretty sure was re-released. I don't know if the first book came out during like the right window. I was not expecting this to be nominated. I did end up enjoying this, but it's Bully, and I feel like a lot of people don't love Bully. So, that's interesting. The Knight and the Moth, that is getting my vote. I love this book so much. So happy that made it. Bonds of Hercules. Okay, so I love Blood of Hercules. That was nominated last year. This is the sequel. I didn't think this was going to be nominated only because it just came out. But everyone that I know that has read it has loved it even more than book one. So I am definitely reading this book. I actually started it. I just have to finish. I'm on chapter like 1 or 2. So awesome. The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, that was in my predictions video. I was least sure about that one out of all of the like fanfic adaptations, but that made it. And then last up is Accomplice to the Villain. One of these books makes it every year, and every year I am surprised. I just have to accept that people love this series. I still need to give it a try, and honestly, I completely forget what it's about. So I'm going to do some research, and I will be back with a plot synopsis of all of these books. Alright guys, so starting off, we have Riled Reverence by Rebecca Ross. Now I believe this is set in the same world as Divine Rivals, but I'm not positive on that. Now in this we are following two characters, Matilda and Vincent. Matilda is the youngest goddess of her clan, and she has been blessed with messenger magic, but she has to keep this a secret from the other gods because for some reason they would want to kill her for that. Now, like I said, the other character we're following is Vincent. And Vincent, for some reason, has been able to see Matilda in his dreams. And they had some sort of friendship. But 10 years ago, Vincent ended up sending Matilda a letter asking for help. Now, by the plot synopsis, I'm assuming this happened in Divine Rivals, but once again, not positive because I didn't finish that duet. But anyway, that message went unanswered, and because of that, Vincent has grown into this very hard and cold person, and everything changes when Matilda ends up crashing into his bedroom one night, and I'm assuming it's going to be their romance. So, like I said previously, I never finished the Divine Rivals duet. It reads very much like historical fiction, and I was just having a very hard time connecting with the story, and I tried to read that book a few times. Now, that book is loved, so I completely understand why this book made it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards, and honestly, that plot sounds really good. So if anyone knows, please let me know. Do I need to finish Divine Rivals before picking this up? But anyway, that is the first book as a nominee. And the next nominee is Immortal. Now, I had this as my like wild card prediction. However, this is getting amazing reviews, so I'm really hoping to read this soon. So in this story, we are following Lien, and Lien is the heir to a kingdom. However, she ends up being poisoned and almost passes away, but her grandfather, who is the ruler, defies the gods in order to save her, which prompts this war between the humans and the gods, led by the god of war. Well, eventually, Lien's father or grandfather ends up passing away, and Lien ascends the throne, and when she does, she tells her people that she is going to put an end to this war. So she ends up being summoned by the gods to their realm, and when she gets there, she makes a very unlikely alliance with the god of war, the same god that wants her dead, and I guess it's going to be their romance, because this is considered a romantasy, and enemies to lovers with a god. That sounds awesome. So another book I will be picking up soon. And the third nominee, and my first correct prediction, we have Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Now, this was Devney Perry's debut into romantasy, and she killed it. Everybody I know has absolutely loved this book. Now, I did enjoy this. However, I ended up giving it, I think, 3.25 or 3.5 stars. I had some issues in terms of pacing. I felt like it was a little slow. Also, the main character, she loves a question. I feel like questions were very much kind of used as a clutch in this book, similar to Poppy from Blood and Ash. For some reason, Poppy doesn't annoy me quite as much as this main character, but that being said, I still 100% will read the sequel. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Shield of Sparrows, it has been quite a while since I've read this, but we are following Princess Odessa. Now, Odessa lives in a kingdom where there are a bunch of other, neighboring kingdoms, and there is this blood oath agreement where there will be marriages between the kingdoms in order to foster harmony. So Odessa's sister is supposed to be marrying the prince of a kingdom that is supposed to be very scary and very secretive, and she's been raised her entire life to do this. However, when that prince and his very brooding guard show up at Odessa's kingdom, the prince decides he wants to marry Odessa. So now Odessa is thrust into this position she never thought she was going to be in, and she is going to have to marry this complete stranger and travel with his very grumpy guard to this very secretive kingdom. And it's her kind of traveling and trying to investigate and learn as much as she can about this kingdom. There are also these very cool monsters, and honestly my favorite part of the book. I am really, really hoping we get more of them in the sequel. But overall, very fun story, and so excited it is nominated. And next up, Bonds of Hercules. Hell yes, I am so happy this is nominated. I loved Blood of Hercules, the first book in this series, and never in a million years did I think this was going to be nominated. However, it was, and that makes me so happy. Now, if you have not read Blood of Hercules, it is one of my top books I read last year. I am positive this is going to be a top read of the year as soon as I finish it. Now, it is a why choose dark fantasy romance, emphasis on dark. The love interests in this, they are straight up villains. They are not morally gray, they are just bad. They are bad guys, at least in the first book. So that is part of the reason I just love this series so much. Also, the humor in this is dark and sarcastic, and I love it. Now, for the overall plot of the first book, we are following Alexis. Alexis lives in a world that has been taken over by Titans, and the only beings able to stop the Titans are these Spartans, who are the children of gods. Now, Alexis is an orphan being raised by these very cruel and abusive foster parents, and she only really has her younger foster brother as her family, and a snake that is very sassy and invisible to most people. So one day she grows up and she has to take a test, and this test determines that she is actually part Spartan. So she is immediately whisked away to a Spartan war college where she has to fight to the death. And if she survives, she is going to be given a Spartan mentor who will teach her how to be a kick-ass Spartan. And it goes from there. Like I said, it is why choose. The first book isn't super spicy until the very last chapter, but I'm hoping the second book has a little bit more spice since it is kind of a why choose situation. But overall, I am so excited to read this. Okay, so next up is The Wrath of the Fallen, which is the fourth book in the Book of Azrael series by Amber V. Nicole. Now, I read the Book of Azrael when it first released, so years ago. And while I did enjoy it, I didn't enjoy it enough to continue with the series. I might have to rectify that, so we will see. But anyway, the first book, if you're unfamiliar, and once again, I would like to say it has been a very long time since I read this, so this is what I remember from the plot. We are following this girl named Diana, and Diana was absolutely desperate to save her sister who was about to pass away. So she makes a deal with this demon named Caden that she will have eternal life and so will her sister, but she will be indebted to him and have to do his bidding, which is a huge mistake, but once again, she is desperate. So both her and her sister are saved, but she has to work for Caden, and she has a pretty miserable existence doing that. And one day, Caden says, hey, I need you to get this relic. Now, this relic is super dangerous, but once again, Diana has no choice, so she goes after to try to find it. Well, while doing so, she ends up killing an angel, and that alerts the super angel, Samkiel, that someone is looking for this relic. So although he is hiding up in a different realm, he has to go back down to, I believe this is taking place on Earth, but I might be wrong, to try to stop whoever is looking for this relic. He runs into Diana and makes her his captive, and it's their story. So it's a little bit of a captive romance, a very kind of dark and dystopian type world. And overall, I did enjoy everything but the romance in this story. I don't know why, I just didn't love these two characters together, but it was still pretty entertaining, and the ending of that book, I don't remember a lot of the plot. I remember the ending vividly. So I might continue. I just need the motivation. And next up is Accomplice to the Villain, which is the third book in the Assistant to the Villain series. Now, like I said, every single year one of these books are nominated, and every single year I act surprised. I don't know why. So I really need to read the series. I might do a vlog where I read some of the books that I have never read that are on this list. I just feel like so many people love this series, and I never see it on like Bookstagram or BookTube. But that just might be because of the followers I follow and algorithm and things like that. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of the first book, we are following Evie, and Evie is desperate for a job. So desperate that she ends up applying to be the secretary to one of the most evil villains in this community, and she ends up getting it, and she actually enjoys her job, and she starts to believe that there is some sort of plot to take down her boss. So in order to stop that from happening, save her job and the villain, she is going to try to figure out who the culprit is. Now, that is the plot of the first book. I don't know what happens in this third book. I don't want to spoil it for myself. But either way, this has been pitched as kind of like a dark romantasy and The Office put together. So I'm intrigued. I am so curious about this series. All right, moving on. We have Enchantra, which is the sequel to Phantasma. Now, I am so happy this was nominated. I actually like Enchantra a little bit more than the first book. I feel like the characters in this really made the story, and it has a Ready or Not kind of vibe to it. So in this, we are following Genevieve Grimm, who we meet in the first book. She's the sister of the main character. Now, she ends up receiving an invitation to this gorgeous Italian manor, and she is expecting opulence and romance, and instead she gets a deadly game of hide and seek that if you lose, you will end up in hell for all eternity. So once she enters this manor, she can no longer leave. So one of the other participants, Rowan, decides, hey, how about we work together? So he decides that they are going to pretend to be a fiance or a couple that's about to get married, and they are going to have to fake date and try to fool everyone around them while also playing this magical game of hide and seek and praying they are not found. So once again, I really enjoyed this. So if you have not read this yet, such a fun read. And next up, we have Direbound. Now, I am so happy this is nominated. I loved this book, and I am so bummed we have to wait until May for the sequel. If you have not read Direbound, I have pitched this as Fourth Wing, but instead of dragons, we have these giant, vicious dire wolves, kind of like the wolves from Game of Thrones. This book is awesome, but it is also very violent, so know that going in. But in this, we are following Maehrer, and Maehrer is just happy living a quiet life with her younger sister, just working with her family. But everything changes when Maehren's younger sister is kidnapped. Now, she is desperate to save her sister, but no one is willing to help her find her, so she ends up turning to the army. So she decides she is going to join the army in the hopes that she'll be able to find her sister that way, not knowing that this is the year the bonding trials are taking place. The bonding trials being these trials that all of the cadets will have to do these very dangerous trials in the hopes of bonding with a super big and scary dire wolf. So that ends up happening for Maehrer, and we're just following her as she tries to survive and find her sister. And it is so good. So I expect this book to make it to probably the final round. Like I said in my prediction video, I'm pretty sure we all know who the winner is going to be, but I am very excited about this book. And next up is On Wings of Blood. Now, like I said, this was a surprise since it is a bully romantasy, and I feel like not a lot of people really love bully, or at least out of my friend group. A lot of people end up avoiding bully. Now, the main MMC in this gives off serious Draco Malfoy vibes. I don't know if the author took inspiration or if this started out as like Hermione or anything like that. But definitely, if you like Draco Malfoy, you will probably love the main MMC in this book. If you're unfamiliar with the plot, we are following Medra Pendragon. Now, she ends up waking up in a completely different realm, and it turns out this realm is filled with vampires. Now, she is a half-fae, however, the vampires in power that end up finding her assume she is a dragon rider, which means she is important in this realm. The dragons no longer exist, but still she is considered powerful, so they send her to this school and betroth her to one of the upper elite vampires. I'm pretty sure his name is Blake or something similar. Anyway, that vampire absolutely hates her and wants to make her life a living hell at this school, along with all of the other fae, and all of the vampires pretty much hate the fae. So then it kind of turns into a bit of a dark academia bully romance for a little bit, and then the ending is absolutely insane. So I will definitely be reading the sequel. Like I've also said in previous videos, I'm pretty sure this is a spin-off from another series. So if you are a little bit confused in the beginning, that's why. I feel like it only lasts a couple chapters, but I definitely feel like I was thrown into a world I was already supposed to know when I started book 1. But either way, like I said, I will definitely be reading the sequel. And next up, we have The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This is a gothic romantasy and one of my top reads of the year. Please ignore the cat that is on the table. He is doing everything in his power to be distracting right now. Now, if you have not read this, it is so good. It has a gothic, really creepy atmosphere. In this book, we are following Sable, and Sable is a diviner, meaning she receives prophetic dreams from these godlike beings known as omens. Well, one day, this mysterious night arrives, and shortly after that, her fellow diviners start going missing. So Sable is desperate to save her friends, but no one else seems to care besides this knight. So Sable and this knight go off on a journey to try to figure out what has happened to her fellow diviners. It is so good. So I absolutely love this book. I actually want to do a reread very soon, and I cannot wait for the sequel. Alright guys, so the next 3 nominees I am going to talk about all together, since they all started out as Harry Potter fanfic, and then had all of the nods to Harry Potter removed, and were re-released as trad published. Now the first one is Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. I have not read the auction, however, even I can tell this is very similar to its source material. There is a part in this book that I am positive was a wand battle in the auction, and then it very much feels like a wand battle in this book. But if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Rose in Chains, we are following this girl named Bryony, whose family was part of this war, and they were on the losing side. So Bryony ends up being stripped of her powers and given at auction to this very powerful family. The son of this family actually was a schoolmate of Bryony's that she harbored a little bit of a crush on, and it's their romance. Now, I will say I did enjoy this. I think I ended up giving this 4 stars. I also really loved the addition of animal companions. I'm not positive if there are animal companions in the auction, but this was a really solid read, so I am happy it's nominated. I am also a little surprised because of all the controversy. I wasn't expecting all 3 books to make the nominee list. Then we have the most popular of the 3, Alchemised, also the darkest. This is a very dark book. This was once manacled, had all of the nods to Harry Potter and Handmaid's Tale removed, and was trad published. Now, the author has stated you do not need to read Manacled, and she would prefer, or they would prefer, if you did not read Manacled before reading this book. This is a completely different book. However, I have not finished this. I am about, I wouldn't even say a third into this because it is very long. It is very dark, so I'm kind of reading this when I know I am in a good headspace. But this is very similar to the plot of Manacled. We are following our main character. I believe her name is Helena, and she was a gifted alchemist, but similar to Rose in Chains, her family was part of a war, and her family ended up losing said war. So she was captured by the enemy, held in this sensory deprivation chamber, similar to kind of like Manacled, and when she is taken out, she has no memory. So now the main necromancers, the group of people that have kind of taken over, have decided that they don't know what to do with her because although she was not a big player in this war, they can't access her memories. So she might actually have information useful to them. So they decide to send her to the High Reeve, a very gifted necromancer, in the hopes he'll be able to pull these memories out of Helena. So that is Alchemized. And then finally, we have the irresistible urge to fall for your enemy, which I did end up DNFing. I was just not a fan of the writing or the humor, or honestly, the plot from what I read, but I did DNF this very, very early. Now in this, we are following, I'm pretty sure he's a bounty hunter, but anyway, he ends up being injured, and the only person that can heal him is an enemy doctor, and he ends up going to her and says, hey, can you help save me? At first, she refuses, but then he offers to help fund her research, which is researching some sort of disease or plague that has come into this community, and she is desperate to find a cure, so she agrees. And it's their romance. So all three of the Harry Potter fanfics did end up making the Goodreads Choice Awards. And next up, we have Silver Elite by Dani Francis. Like I said, this is somewhat of a controversial pick. A lot of people do not consider this romantasy. I also do not consider it 100% romantasy. It is definitely a dystopian. However, it is a dystopian with magical elements, as opposed to To Cage a Wild Bird, which was just straight up dystopian. So I do kind of understand why Goodreads put it in this category. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Silver Elite, like I said, I loved this book. We are following Ren, and Ren lives in a world where having psychic abilities is equal to a death sentence, so she has been hiding the fact she possesses these abilities to the best of her ability. Well, one day, she messes up and is exposed, and because of this, she is sent to Silverblock, which is this elite kind of military organization, and Ren decides she is going to take this enemy regime down from the inside. That is, if a certain commanding officer doesn't kind of catch on to her plans, and I really enjoyed this. It was a very fun and entertaining read, so I'm not exactly sure why it was getting so much hate. I actually have a vlog of reading this along with Shield of Sparrows that I will leave in the cards and the description, but overall, I cannot wait for the sequel. Alright, and next up is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is kind of like a spin-off to The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. It is following a character we meet in that duet, and it takes place after the events of The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Now, in this, we are following Misha, and Misha had once devoted her entire life to the sun god. But when she is turned into a vampire, her entire life is flipped upside down, and we are made very aware of that in the original duet. She does not enjoy being a vampire, and she's very sad that she has lost the love of this sun god that she has devoted her entire life to. So, when she sees the vampire that turns her, she kills him immediately, and because of this, she is sentenced to death. But she is saved by the bastard Prince of Shadows. Now, they are both tasked with finding the god of death, and our main character, Misha, has to decide if she is going to align herself with the sun god, the person she was once devoted to, or align herself with this person that saved her life and she has slowly been growing feelings for as they journey together. So, I do want to read this book. I was waiting for the sequel to release, and I was a bit kind of worried to pick this up, only because I've had friends that have read this and they weren't a huge fan. I love this character, so I'm really, really hoping I do end up loving this duet. Okay, so next up is the Compendium of Lost Tales, which is book either 3 or 4 in the Encyclopedia of Fairies series. I did not think this was going to be selected. I know Encyclopedia of Fairies is much loved. However, I have not seen a lot of people talking about this sequel, so very surprised it made it. All I know about the first book is, 1, it's kind of like cozy fantasy romance, hence why I have not picked it up yet. But we're following this scholar who is trying to create the first encyclopedia of fairies. So she travels to some unknown location and is doing that. And then her very charming rival shows up. And it's going to be a romance between the two of them. As many of you are aware, I don't love like very cozy or like cute fantasy romance, so I have not read this, but I know my friend Hannah from Hannah Blackwell, that channel, she did very much love this book, and a few of my other friends have as well, so definitely worth giving a try. Alright guys, so down to the final 4. Next up we have Mate by Ali Hazelwood, the first book in this series being Bride. Now I'm pretty sure Bride was vampire, werewolf, and this plot seems more just werewolf focused, so I'm not sure if it includes vampires. But in this we are following Serena, and Serena is a half human, half wolf, and her birth was supposed to unite these two divided races, and instead she has become their most hunted target. So with enemies closing in all around her, her only hope is this alpha werewolf who has promised to protect her at all costs, and I'm assuming it's going to be a romance between the two of them. Definitely a book I need to read immediately. And the next nominee is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This seems like a very cute spooky season romance, which is why I have not read this book yet and probably will not be picking it up anytime soon. I just don't love cute, cozy fantasy romance. But in this, we are following a witch, or a witch that was once the most powerful witch in Britain, until a spell goes wrong and she ends up losing all of her magic. So now she is working at this very cute inn, and she stumbles upon an old spell book that she believes can help return her magic to her. So she enlists the help of this historian. I'm assuming it's a romance between the two of them, and together they are going to try to get her magic back. So that sounds very cute, and if that plot sounds good to you, definitely think of giving it a try. And next up is Our Vicious Oaths. Now, I have not read this yet, however, it will be one of the first books I read in December. I already have a physical copy, and I am so excited about this book. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the plot, we are following Kadisha, and she is a warrior, not a pawn. However, her arranged marriage with a ruthless king from another kingdom really leaves her no choice. So in order to save her people, she is gonna have to marry this guy, but she's gonna have some fun first. So she ends up having a brief encounter with this mysterious stranger before her wedding, and she finds out that mysterious stranger is actually a king from a rival kingdom, Malachi, who has come to try to kill her betrothed. So Malachi ends up killing her father and kidnaps her, and Kadisha, once again being desperate to save her people, says, hey, I have a proposition. If I help you kill the guy I'm betrothed to, will you spare my people? And Malachi agrees, and I'm assuming it's gonna be their romance. Now, I heard about this book from the author herself at Books, Gowns, and Crowns. At the time, the book had not come out yet, so you were able to pre-order from this indie shop, and you got artwork, which was really cool. But unfortunately, I recently heard over the weekend that Annie Davenport has gone through something absolutely horrible. Her husband has recently passed away, and it seems like it was very unexpected. Not that it matters if it was or not. Either way, losing your husband or your significant other or partner is incredibly upsetting and traumatic. I also believe she does have young children, so it's even more heartbreaking. So if you have been planning to pick up this book, I ask you, please give it a try, pick it up. Any support we can do to help Annie Davenport at this time would be very welcome. I know there was a donation going around. If that is still up, I will leave it down in the description below. I am just sending all of my prayers and well wishes to Annie Davenport. And to absolutely no one's surprise, we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This will end up winning. I will be unbelievably surprised if this is not the overall winner of the Romantasy category. Now, that is frustrating only because I feel like Sarah J. Maas, Rebecca Yarros, and normally I would say Jennifer L. Armentrout, but I am just now realizing her book wasn't even nominated. That is surprising. I'm literally just coming to this as I'm filming. I definitely thought Primal of Blood and Bone was going to be up here. So very surprised at that. But anyway, it is frustrating when the bigger authors sweep every single year. It is one of the most popular Romantasy series. And like I said in my prediction video, while this is my least favorite in the Empyrean series, I do respect the fact that this series has really opened the door to Romantasy for a lot of readers. There have been so many people I've met this year that said that they learned about Romantasy because of Fourth Wing and now have gone down the rabbit hole of Romantasy. So I have mixed feelings about this being nominated and being the winner. I just feel like a lot of people were kind of let down by this book, me included, but overall this series is one of my favorite series. So lots of mixed feelings. If you are unfamiliar with Fourth Wing, I have given this pitch many times. We are following Violet Sorrengail. She ends up waking up believing that she is going to become a scribe, and instead her dragon rider mother tells her that no daughter of hers is going to be a dragon rider. Instead, she is going to have to go to a dragon rider academy in the hopes of surviving long enough to bond with a dragon, gain magical abilities, and then join kind of like the dragon army. And it's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. So, once again, lots of mixed feelings. Let me know, what do you think? Should this be the winner? Do you think one of the other books should have won? I have a lot of thoughts. Alright guys, that is it for my Goodreads Romantasy Nominees breakdown and reaction. Now, let me know down in the comments below if you agree with the books that were nominated. I will be doing my own honest fiction awards video at the end of this month that will include the 20 fantasy romance books I believe should have been nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards, because every single year I very strongly disagree with the books they selected. I will say this year, I'm kind of 50-50. I feel like they did better than last year, but still, there are a few indie books that I feel like deserve so much more love. Now, I would like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Leslie, Christy, Kat, Lada, and Nerdy. Thank you guys for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.